Greetings, Joseph Kursky here with you. In this video, let's create a dashboard from the map that we've collected data into with our field tools, and then let's include some multimedia elements in that dashboard, pie charts, gauges, video, and other elements, so we can understand our field data collection and results. Let's briefly recap where we've been on this journey. We started with Survey 123 from ArcGIS, from that platform from Esri. We collected data into it, in this case about storm drains. We crowdsourced it so that other students and faculty could actually collect data as well into it. We then put that data into a map. We talked about 2D maps, and in one of the tutorials/videos talked about bringing this into a 3D scene, which is also part of that ArcGIS platform that you have at your fingertips. Here's the 2D map in ArcGIS Online. We also then talked about how do I add data to this map so I have context. In this case, since the theme is water, it made sense for us to add watersheds, real-time weather, real-time stream gauges, buoys, weather stations, and satellite imagery, and so on, flood risk, and a few other layers. We also talked about making a 3D scene out of the resulting data. Now, in this part of the lesson series together, let's talk about how to create a dashboard. A dashboard, as the name implies, gives you a one-screen, ideally, view. As you can see, the gauge that shows how many points have been collected into the Survey 123, along with the map showing the results of that surveys from Survey 123. How do I create a dashboard? Well, inside ArcGIS Online, you've got the ability to create a dashboard in this app launcher, one of which is, look, dashboards. Let's click on dashboards in our ArcGIS Online organizational account. And in here, I've got a couple of dashboards that I and my colleagues have already created. I'm going to create a new one now, and I'm going to give it some metadata tags and title and summary so that I can find my dashboard more easily in the future, and so can you if I shared it with others. So I'm going to label this, title this dashboard, and give it some tags again to make life easier on myself and also on others in the future. There's a lot of pieces in GIS, so you want to pay attention to these metadata screens and don't give it short shrift. I'm abbreviating it a little bit for this video, but I would spend a bit of time making meaningful tags and so on. It says your dashboard is empty. So this big plus sign, which is the experience that you see in many of the ArcGIS tools, for example, story maps, you say, okay, what do you want to add? Everything is operated on this plus sign, and I can say, hey, I want to add a map. Now I could add a 3D scene, I could add a 2D map. I've got a couple of things that I've built and my colleagues have built that I could select from. So I'm going to go ahead and select one of those that actually has some content that's relevant, and I'm going to tweak these. I want a legend. I want the user to be able to switch the base maps and zoom in and out. So you've got some capabilities here of controlling the look and feel and the functionality of your dashboard in the future for the users of your dashboard. Okay, now I'm going to zoom in on the study area that is in Western New York, in Buffalo, and I'm going to say, you know what, now I want a gauge. I want to indicate how many storm drains have been collected via Survey 123, and I'm going to leave it at count here. I'm going to take the default colors. Know that you can change colors, fonts, themes of these dashboards. Now I can just tweak these borders, and I can even say don't show a border. And now I'm going to give it a title here so that it's a little bit easier to interpret. How many storm drains have been collected thus far? This is a real-time dashboard with a real-time gauge. And let's say I want to make that color sort of match the default color of the gauge, and so sort of an orangish color. Maybe this is a little bit too bright. You've got the ability to tweak these things. So we won't spend a lot of time on aesthetics, but with a few clicks, I've got a map and I've got a gauge. Very nice. Okay, so this is building dashboards. Wow, powerful to be able to do this. I've got a pie chart now that I'm inserting, and I've got some attributes that I could choose from, but I'm going to select who created the data. Who created the data in the survey? Who was the one that collected that data? I've got some data users in my ArcGIS Online organizational account, and I'm going to go ahead and say done there. So now I know who collected how many points, and so I'm going to move these things around. You can see I can dock things. I can configure this, just eyeballing this. Wow, powerful to be able to do this. So I can configure this exactly how I want it with the elements that I want. Now, more is not always better. With story maps, dashboards, adding content to your maps, more is not always better. But you know what? A legend would be nice here. It would be nice, and it shouldn't be so large in my opinion. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this. I don't like that so much as a row because it takes up too much room and I can't see the lower part of the legend. But look, I've got some capabilities in addition to what I've just showed, and that is, let's go ahead and drag the item here so that we can, not dock as a column or row, but look, stack the items. Now I've got a tab for map and the map legend. Oh, that's so nice. I'm going to leave it at that. I want that map to be just a little bit bigger, so we'll tinker with that just in a little bit. But notice the elements that you have at your fingertips here. You can add some text and some embedded content and so on and so forth. Let's go ahead and do that. I want to add an image. Let's say my image is, where is that image? It's an image that I actually tweeted about, and here's my photo from my tweet. So there it is, and I'm going to go ahead and grab the URL for that. It's public, so I can go ahead and use that image. Ah, wonderful. So there's me standing at one of these storm drains explaining the importance of them. And I'm going to drag that as well, as you can see here. And now that whole row, or should say column, is a bit too wide, so I'm going to adjust that a little bit so I give most importance to the map. And I'm kind of liking this right now, liking that really well. And notice that graph, that gauge, that pie chart, they're all interactive. As I float over it with my mouse or my touchpad, I'm getting additional information about that. How about some text with a URL embedded in the text that points to a video that I filmed at that point? Okay, so now I've got a map, a gauge, a pie chart, some text, an image, and a legend. Excellent. And the powerful thing, of course, is that you and your students can configure these as well. You can see that it's pretty intuitive. Let's test out my video, make sure that's working. Okay, so there's my video about collecting, mapping, and analyzing everyday things on the landscape, and here's me out at the storm drain. Perfect, that's working very nicely. And let's skip ahead. Here I explain how you can use this in education and so on. Okay, all good. So I've got the video now in my dashboard as a link. I can also embed it if I chose. I think I'll leave it the way it is. So here's me embedding it, but I don't want that. I want the link. I think I prefer that in this case. Okay, let's go ahead and save this. And what other choices do we have? Settings, colors, aesthetics. I'm not going to spend time in this particular tutorial video, but you can adjust these as you see fit. If you want more power, though, than dashboards give you, then you're going to step into the web app builder and the experience builder, where you get a little bit more power and adding your own widgets that do certain things. All right, now let's go ahead and sign into my ArcGIS online organizational account, and let's take a look at the content that I have in there. And notice that I have a dashboard there. It's the very latest thing that I created. I'm going to update the sharing so I can share it with my organization, and go ahead and save there. And let's look at the groups I have available. Let's share it with that educator group so that they can see it as well. And so now I've updated my sharing options for my dashboard. Every one of these content items in ArcGIS Online has a metadata page and the ability to share or not share as you see fit. So I've created a dashboard here: pie chart, gauge, image, map legend, text, video. Very powerful to be able to do this. And these tools are at your fingertips. Here's another dashboard that I've created just to show you if you want more power. Okay, here I've got two maps, and one of the functions of a dashboard is you can set a trigger or something to happen once you click and zoom on one map. In this case, as you can see, I've got the first map linked to the second, so that if I zoom and pan around on the first map, the second map, which the second map has the actual storm gauges, the storm drains in there. If I do that, then my map changes up from one to the other. So notice now that I've got basically the same content, though. I don't really want that. Well, I do have the storm drains on the second one, but let's go ahead and get that URL for my web map. Let's just go ahead and test that out. So the URL for the map that has the additional content that we went through in that one of those video tutorials of mine, where you're adding stream gauges, you're adding real-time weather, you've got hydrography, watershed boundaries, etc. So that's the one I want in one of those frames in my dashboard. So, okay, I need to get the URL for that particular web map. And then in my dashboard, I can go ahead and configure this, right? How do I do that once the dashboard is already created? We talked about how to create one from scratch, but what if I want to configure it once I've created it? Well, I go back to my content zone, and I go back to that other dashboard that I've created, and I can go ahead and edit it and adjust it. So I've got some web maps, I've got some feature layers, which are sort of like the Lego bricks that make up your maps. Here's my hydro. I'm going to go ahead and open that in the new map viewer. And I've got some things turned off that I might want to turn on in this particular map so they display on my dashboard. So the dashboard points to, as your story maps do, they point to maps that you've saved or other people have saved, and oftentimes they're in near real time or real time. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my dashboard here. There's my web map, and there's my storm drains. And so let's go ahead to that dashboard. Now, this is how I want it. Now that I've saved my web map with my layers on, as I pan around my two maps in my dashboard, I'm seeing, okay, watersheds and the storm drains on the right side, and on the left side, I'm seeing real-time weather, real-time stream gauges, and so on. Wow, this is really powerful. With just about, 10 or 15 minutes, creating this dashboard and configuring it, we've got a very powerful look at my data. And again, this could be not just storm drains. This could be dangerous intersections in the community. It could be urban greenways. It could be tree species, water quality. It could be population change. You name it. The sky's the limit. A number of pedestrians at each intersection, and much more. These are very dynamic content and very powerful to be able to do this in teaching, learning, research, and other areas of education. So now I've got a need to, I really want that dashboard to be slightly different named, so I'm going to name it in the metadata page, Mapping Storm Drains Dashboard with 2 Map. Mapping is redundant. Let's call it Storm Drains Dashboard with 2 Maps. Save that. Let's add a little bit of description. I advocated that you pay attention to these metadata pages earlier, so let's practice what I'm preaching and put a little bit more information in the metadata page, and this is another place where I could go ahead and edit dashboard right there. Okay, let's take a look. Storm drains dashboard with 2 maps. And so that's looking good for metadata. Let's go ahead and take a look at that dashboard right now. Okay, there's storm drains dashboard with 2 maps, so my adjusted title worked just fine. And now, bandwidth permitting, we'll be able to see this in a short amount of time. Now remember, these dashboards are pointing to a lot of different layers, and you've got a pie chart and other real-time information that's updating, a real-time weather feed, and a satellite image that's just a few hours old. So, give it have a little patience here, and it'll draw. But you recognize that it's pulling in a lot of data, which is amazing. You've got all this data streaming in as data as services at your fingertips. This is looking really good now, folks. I'm really happy with my dashboard here with the 2 maps. So I could save it, I could share it with groups, etc. All right, I've got some content here that didn't take me much to create, but let us see what we have at this point. We have at our fingertips several different content items inside our ArcGIS Online organizational subscription. As you create content, you'll want to pay attention to these metadata pages. You'll want to be organized and put these things into folders, not just save them wherever, because there's a lot of pieces to GIS. Here's our storm drain dashboard. Let's take a look at that one more time. I've got my text with video link. I've got my gauge indicating I've got 72 storm drains in there right now, and my left side map, my right side map, both of those are linked. As I zoom and pan on one, the other one changes scale as well, and I have my pie chart. I'm really happy with this at the moment. Now, if I want to change it later, I can change it later, but we started with a survey 123. Then we created a map from the survey. Then we created additional layers. We added additional layers. We created this dashboard, and in the next video, and here's another dashboard that we created together. And finally, that other dashboard with 2 maps, we created that as well. All right, in this next segment, we're going to talk about how do we create then a story map that summarizes our study and presents it in an engaging, meaningful way to people that read it. Thanks.